Good morning, I'm Mike Graham and he's Mike Parry and you're listening to Extra Time. The two mics will be keeping you entertained throughout the night. Greg Dyke's got a plan, Roy Hodgson's working on a project. English players are too expensive to get to play first team football in the Premier League. So what happens now? We get Luke Shaw going to Manchester United for over £30 million, making around about £160,000 a week at the age of 18. What could possibly go wrong?
Seen it before, there's a lot of money been spent. I mean, 60 million and there's talk about 200 million and, and I agree with you. When is it going to stop? When are you not going to play a kid, 18-year-old, £100,000 a week and stop him from, going off the deep end and making this money before he's even proven himself? That's what I find strange, and I think the only way is what you said, Mike, is a salary cap.
That's Gordon Hill there, former Manchester United England winger, of course, saying that it really is getting quite ridiculous now. How long before we have the first £1 million a week footballer? It's going to be an extraordinary state of affairs. We're taking your calls, 08717 22 3344. We're going to be talking about Stonehenge. We're going to be talking about the US of A. We're going to be talking about loads more. You're listening to Extra Time with Mike Graham and Mike Parry on Talk Sport. Warms the cockles of your heart, doesn't that? Very good morning to you, Mr. Mike Parry. I'm delighted to say that you're here with me for the fourth time this week. It's a real bumper week for the two mics. And, what I'm really glad about is that you finally listened to all of the information I've been giving you about the USA team, how it's a great idea to support them in the World Cup, and how, rah-rah for USA against Belgium coming up in the next few days.
You've gone completely mad, Mike.
Hey?
You've gone completely stateside, and I don't blame you, because your children are American, and you're sort of part American yourself, and you lived there for quite a long time, not long enough, some people would say.
They like me over there.
Do they?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, I wasn't aware of that. But anyway, look, the point is, you've now gone completely pro-USA.
Well, I thought you joined me. Have you not joined me?
No, I've not joined you. I keep trying to tell you this, and you won't accept it. I'm English, right? And England are now out of the World Cup. Therefore, I do not transfer my allegiances or my favouritisms to any other nation. Now, you're claiming that you've got dual nationality, but you haven't.
Well, I haven't got dual nationality.
Well, your only dual nationality, actually, is England and Scottish.
Well, I could have had dual nationality.
One minute you're English, when you want to be metropolitan elite London, big...
What are you talking about?
Big guys swanning around
I've always said
Square.
no. I never go to Berkeley Square.
And then on the other hand, you want to be, a Scottish laird who, yeah, you do, yeah. Prancing around Glasgow like you own the place.
No, I consider myself to be British. I've got a great story for you about Glasgow actually coming up later on.
Very good. But now you've got this third identity, you want to be American. And since the Americans have got through to the qualifying stages of the World Cup, much to the embarrassment of the mother country of football, England, you'll now be coming over all stars and stripes. I mean, fancy opening the hour of the show with the American national anthem.
I thought you'd appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate only to the extent where I have a lot of respect for America, and I like him. By the way, I was at I was in America once during one of the Olympics. I can't remember which one it was. But do you remember...
Was it the one that was in America? Atlanta.
No, I did that one. I was actually in Atlanta for that one. This was when I was in New York. So that must have been the Los Angeles one.
Yeah, it could have been.
Yeah,
that was in the 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was in the 80s, yeah. So anyway, the point of the story is, and we're in all these bars in New York.
What is the point of the story?
Yeah, well, this is the point of the story. We're in all these bars in New York, as we normally are, and I'd only...
Yeah, the Olympic drinking competition.
Yeah, that's right,
It's not just every 4 years, it's every 4 hours.
Yeah, that's right, about every 4 minutes. And I was only on a flying visit, so I wasn't actually living and working there then. I had been, or I'd gone back to England, I'd come back or something like that. And, of course, I got in this bar, and I was talking to my mate. It might have even been you, actually. And we're sitting there having a few sherbets, but the Americans were winning so many medals at the Olympics. Yeah. About every 20 minutes, that song came on.
There goes another flag.
Yeah, absolutely. But the problem is the Americans are so patriotic, or at least they were in those days, whenever that came on, you were immediately expected, like this, jump out your stool and stand up. That's right.
Well, I'll tell you something funny.
And sorry, I'm an echo. You put your hand across your chest on your heart, and you stood there rigidly solid without talking.
Well, it's funnier than that. When I was in the States just the other week for my son's high school graduation, you know, they start the whole ceremony with somebody singing the national anthem, right?
Yeah.
Then they actually do the Pledge of Allegiance. So you put your hand on your heart and you start doing, you know, I pledge whatever it is, the allegiance to the United States of America. My sister, right, who's now become a citizen.
American citizen.
She's got her hand on her heart. She's pledging the allegiance.
What
right?
about you?
And I said, no, I wasn't doing it. And I said to her, what are you doing?
Yeah.
She's going, and you're not supposed, you know, it's like speaking during a national anthem. You're not supposed. I said, what are you doing?
Yeah.
She's like, well, I'm pledging allegiance. I said, why?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a citizen. I said, yeah, but you're not American.
No, you were born in
You're
Hampstead.
not American. You're British.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
What on earth are you doing? My daughter was killing herself laughing. She is dual nationality. She has got a British passport and she has got an American passport, which I could get if I wanted to. You know, if I ever wanted to go and work there, which would be the only reason I would. But I will be British for the rest of my life. I'm not English or Scottish. I will always be
Except
British.
you're American at the moment because you're supporting the
I'm
Americans.
supporting the Americans because I think it's a great idea.
But anyway, talking about the Olympics there now. So what happened was this happened about 6 times in 1 hour.
Right.
So after the 5th one, you know, I thought I'm not getting up again. I'm trying to have a drink here. And so when the next one came on, I just sat there.
Right.
And my mate sat there. He was English as well. I thought it might have been you, but you probably got so bladdered you can't remember.
I can't remember. Well, neither can you.
And well, no, I can't actually. And so we sat there. Next minute, both of our collars were, you know, roughly handled by something like, get off your stool and stand up and salute the flag. I mean, and I turned around and I said, hang on. I'm British, pal. I'm not even American. I don't give a goddamn. You're in this bar, and they just went mad.
Yeah.
They went completely mad, you know. Yeah,
it is. They can be a little bit over the top.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying that you should adopt everything American. There's plenty of things about America I don't like. But all I'm saying is, for the purposes of the World Cup, I like the way the USA are playing. I love the way they gave Germany a game the other night, and you know, I hope they beat Belgium.
Well, I'm a big fan
One of my
America.
other favourite teams.
I'm a big fan of America, and going to America inspires you and changes your whole life.
It does.
Gives you a completely different outlook on life. You know, how to be positive, how to get on with it, how success can be bred by hard work and all that kind of stuff. And for that reason, I'm rather upset at the moment.
Are you?
Yeah, because...
You look upset.
Well, I am, because...
There's a hay fever, by the way.
The hay fever's receded a little bit, but I think that's because it hasn't been very hot today. So I've had a bit of a day off, really, but I'm still battling it fiercely.
You haven't got the lemon juice.
But bravely. Well, I've done all that outside, left it all outside there because I'm not suffering too badly. No, for about the last 2 or 3 years, I've taken succour and comfort from the rerunning of every episode of Dallas, right? Remember Dallas?
Yeah, I remember you were missing. Did you not miss one of the football games because you were watching a rerun of Dallas or something?
No, I recorded it and watched it later, you know, but I have to make sure I don't miss it because I get totally inspired. You know, you know, it goes. Isn't that brilliant? Well, that's it, yeah. And it's brilliant. And I love the opening where you see the helicopter fluttering around all the big buildings made of glass and all that.
First time I ever went to Dallas,
Yeah.
and I rented one of those big cars. You're
Yeah.
driving in from the airport,
Yeah.
and you're driving and you see the skyline.
That's right.
I'm driving along singing it.
Yeah,
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I know.
You know,
It's fantastic,
stupid
isn't it?
things that you do.
But anyway, the point of the story is,
I never met JR though.
I did.
Did you?
Yeah, I met J.R. Ewing.
What, you mean Larry Hagman?
Well, you call him what you like. As far as I'm
Well,
concerned,
Larry
it's J.R.
Hagman's his
Ewing.
real name. Why don't we call him that?
Yeah. Anyway, look, the point of my story is, I have found the daily dose of Dallas, which has been played out on CBS drama at 7 o'clock every
Are you
night.
talking about the old one or the new one? 'Cause they did a new one.
No,
didn't they?
no. Forget the new one. I'm talking about the original one,
Right.
the original J.R. Ewing. You know, Bobby Ewing and all that. Yeah, enough of that. Thank you very much. Yeah. That's the one. And what I'm saying is, I find, all of that. It's all of that. That's what Dallas is all about. Yeah. And I met Bill Clinton in Dallas as well.
Did you?
Yeah, but that's another story. Thank you. Now the dialogue
Yeah,
comes in.
he's already said he's upset. So don't upset him anymore.
Yeah. So I found my daily dose of absolutely inspiring because I have tried to lead my life over the last 2 or 3 years along the lines and the principles of J.R. Ewing. Exactly. I think
But he was an evil, villainous
No, he
type
wasn't.
of man.
No. That is rubbish. That is utter rubbish. J.R. Ewing had the most honourable principles in the world. He did everything in the name of his father and his family name, the Ewings and Jock Ewing. He did everything in the name of his son and his children and his brother and all his relatives and the family.
Well, he had what you would describe as the morals of an alley cat. as you've often described me.
No, I wouldn't say that at all.
Well, he had a mistress, didn't he?
Well, maybe, but his wife was a drunk, so he had to go.
So that's all right then.
Well, no, he had to go and seek succour and comfort somewhere, didn't he? Otherwise, he'd been emotionally disturbed. And also, a lot of what he did in what other people thought was just womanising was in fact business. He had to go and sort of persuade people of the righteousness of what he was doing through, strange ways and that kind of stuff. But I just thought that his principles, he stuck to all his beliefs, he was determined, he was ambitious, he was ruthless in his pursuit of his goals.
He also didn't exist.
No, but he did for me.
Well, he might have
every day for me.
All that means is you're barking mad. It doesn't actually mean that you said anyway something that anybody else should follow.
Every time I saw an episode of Dallas, when it finished at the end, I wanted more of it, and I felt inspired. I just thought the way he ran his life, and why
are you going on about it now? Why has it stopped again or something?
Yeah, this is the point I'm trying to make to you. He was the ultimate winner, and I recognise he was winners. You've got to be a winner. If you're not a winner in life.
Yeah, but why are you upset that it's not on?
Well, because what happened was I turned it on last night, only suddenly to find that it's gone. And they put something else on, and I feel
it must have got to the end, didn't it? Get to the end?
Yeah, it must have got to the end, I suppose. I mean, the last couple of episodes were really strange. JR was going to try and shoot himself because of his empire.
Hadn't he already been shot by then?
Oh, no, he was shot 8 days ago. His empire had collapsed. Right. All the family had left South Fork, the family... By the way...
They obviously didn't share your view that he was this great man for the family.
By the way, do you know how big South Fork was?
I can't remember.
100,000, 100 square miles.
Right.
How about that for a ranch?
That's a big ranch.
That's not bad, is it? Yeah. 100 square miles and...
that didn't exist either.
And had to fly a helicopter across it just to get from A to B in it and all that kind of stuff, But utterly, totally inspiring because, they started with nothing, the Ewings, they became oil barons, they became ranchers.
You're mad.
No, I'm not. It's a very inspiring story.
You're also going about somebody in Coronation Street. It doesn't exist either.
No, well, Coronation Street is only inspiring to the extent that I grew up in those little cobbled streets and they remind me of home. But, Dallas and Ewing and J.R. Ewing is everything that people want to be.
Why don't you just buy the box set and watch it over and over again?
Well, because that would defeat the purpose of it all, in the sense, well, you get sick of it in the end, I suppose. I wanted to watch it unfold, at a reasonable pace.
You must have seen it already once before.
Well, I don't think you saw every episode, did you? When you were young, you had better things to do.
You did. I mean, I remember when it was first on, and I was living in England.
Yeah.
And it would come on at 7 o'clock at night, because in those days, Saturday night was still something sat around the TV and watch. And you'd all sit there and watch it.
Yeah, but when you got to being like a later teenager, you were out and away with your mates, weren't you? You didn't sit at home watching Dallas and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I seem to remember watching quite a lot of it.
But I met J.R. Ewing, and...
got a picture of you?
I have got a picture.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, like all the other pictures you keep threatening to bring in. You said you had a picture of you with Joan Collins. You said you had a picture of you with
I've got a picture of Joan Collins.
Well, I haven't seen it, though. You keep saying you're going to bring it in.
Well, why have I got to prove to you I've got a picture of me and Joan Collins?
Well, because if you've got a picture, why don't you bring it in? We can put it out on Twitter.
Well, why should I? Just to impress you?
Yeah.
Oh,
just to prove to me that you're not making it up.
Okay. This is my machine.
Yeah.
This is a phone, right?
That is your machine.
Yeah, and this has got a load of stuff in it.
Yeah.
I'm now going to send to you, because I think I know how to do this. In here, there's a picture of me and J.R. Ewing.
Really?
Okay, somewhere. I mean, it only looks like the size of a little diary, but this is a magic electronic machine.
It's called a phone.
Well, it is, actually. And what I'll do is I will find the picture library, and then I'll go and find one of the lads behind the glass there, get him to identify this picture, get it out, and I'll send it to you.
Okay.
And then you can apologise to me for doubting the honesty of what I've been saying to you. You're trying to make out to the audience that I'm some sort of airhead who goes around boasting of having met people who I've never met.
Well, because you've never ever provided any proof.
Well, I'm going to provide proof tonight. I'm telling you, I'm going to make you eat your words.
Okay, well, that'll be the first time that's ever happened. Mike Porky Parry and myself, Mike Graham, back next with a load more.
Every game, every goal, every day, live on TalkSport.
This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Gray. I'm delighted to say that Mike Porky Parry is next to me. He has, I have to tell you, bizarrely, not only has he managed to work out how his phone works, he has actually shown me the picture of him and J.R. Ewing.
Thank you.
A.K.A. Larry Hagman. I'll have to be sending it out on social media very shortly. It does look, however, as if you're kind of... just in a group of people around him.
No,
that's what it looks like to me.
This picture is at New Scotland Yard when he arrived, and I don't refer to him as Larry Hagman. This is J.R. Ewing. He's got a Texas cowboy hat on. He's standing there. He looks just like J.R. Ewing. As far as I'm concerned, he's J.R. Ewing. So happened, I was a young reporter of the Express in those days. I was told to go over to New Scotland Yard and meet J.R. Ewing, which of course I did. Wrote a brilliant piece on him, and I would say we formed a bond. And from that bond, I then decided that the principles by which J.R. Ewing lives his life were the sort of principles that inspired me, okay?
Well, maybe what I'm going to do for you is I will find you a box set of Dallas and get you. I mean,
no,
I
don't want
picture,
that.
When I looked at this picture, it doesn't even look as though he can see that you're actually there.
Of course he can.
And you do look very, very sort of cherubic, if you
What do you mean, cherubic?
Cherubic, yeah, like a cherub.
I'm not like cherubic at all. I look like, the hard-nosed newsman that I was in those days.
No, you look like a member of Manfred Mann's Earth Group.
No, I don't. No, I don't. As usual, you're being,
Who's the girl to your left?
The girl to my left. Yeah, she was a reporter from the Daily Mail.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know who she is now. Well, I mean, she's probably the same person that she was then. But what I mean is, I haven't got any. I don't know how she grew up or what she's doing.
We'll send it out and we'll see what people make of it. But it doesn't exactly look as if you're talking to him anyway, apart from everything else.
Well, that's only because he's talking to somebody else at the time. But I had half an hour with him in the room.
When I ask for a picture of you with some celebrity that you're supposed to be, friends with or that you know, ideally you're in the frame, like she's looking at each other or talking to each other.
I want all our audience, please, to have a... Have you sent this picture out?
Yeah, no, I'll do it in a minute.
Right, send it on Twitter, right, and have a look at it, please, and then I think you'll come back and you will see the sort of the mutual admiration society between myself and Larry Hagman, the man on whom I've modelled a lot of my adult life, because I admire his principles. Yeah. What was that story you going to tell me about?
Well, I was going to tell you, because funnily enough, just before I left the house tonight, and I had a terrible day, which I'll tell you about later on.
Oh, do you think I really care about your terrible day?
Well, you may not care about it, but I just want you to understand that, the stresses and strains of leading the life that I lead are sometimes, quite difficult to handle.
Try and organise your life like I do.
Yeah, well, you don't have to look after anybody, do you?
Well, you don't have to deal with a broken tooth, which I'm still battling against.
Oh, right.
With pain in my gum.
You still got pain there?
I'm not complaining about it, am I?
When's your dentist coming back? Tuesday?
Tuesday,
yeah. Have you got an appointment then?
Yeah, first thing Tuesday morning.
Excellent. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of somebody called Paolo Nutini. You may not have done.
Paolo Nutini?
Yeah, have you ever heard of Paolo Nutini? No. Well, just before I came out, I was watching Glastonbury was on, and it's one of those things that every year when it comes on, you're kind of inexorably drawn to watching bits of it. I don't like to watch much of it, But I mean, you see
people washing around in mud.
Well, they weren't that muddy because it was quite a nice day actually, but they had an electrical storm and all the power went out, so Paolo Nutini's concert
always happens at these
slightly
places.
delayed. But he got up there and he started singing, and I suddenly remembered that I actually met this guy, Paolo Nutini, probably about. Must have been about 8 years ago.
Who is he?
He's a singer, basically.
Who's he sing for?
He's from Glasgow. He sings for himself. That's his, his stage name is Paolo Nutini.
Hang on, is he a little fella?
He's not that little.
And is he a classical singer?
No, he's a pop singer.
I met some guy, when I met Rod Stewart in Glasgow once, some other little fella turned up. He was a classical singer. He said he was very famous, so I talked to him. I don't know who he was.
You can't remember his name. You got a picture of yourself with looking over his shoulder, by any chance?
No, not at all.
No, but I met Paolo Nutini at this kind of do that I was at, because I did used to hobnob with quite a lot of people, and a mate of mine was a music promoter and all that.
Right.
And I just remember saying to him, giving him a great deal of advice at the bar of the Radisson SAS Hotel in Glasgow.
No, well.
Telling him, basically that he shouldn't listen to people who want him to change the way he plays his music.
Yeah.
Was
he in a group or was he on his own?
No, he was on his own. I mean, he has a backing. He has a sort of backing group.
Is he like Prince? So he stands on the stage and he's got a few backing singers.
From Prince.
Well, who's he like?
He's not from Minneapolis for a start.
Is he like Bob Dylan?
He's from Glasgow. Well, no, not really. I mean, he's a sort of a balladeer, I suppose you might say.
Balladeer.
So he does sing, he's sort of acoustic guitar, but I mean, he's got some rocking stuff going on as well.
Is he like that guy who sung
some Paolo Nutini in a minute.
Is it like that guy who sung The Streets of London, Ralph McTell?
No, he's not as folky as that. He's not as folk. Well, we'll play some music in a bit, and you'll hear it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just remember saying to him, and I was standing there at the bar with him and my mate Donald, who's the music promoter, and I just said, look, the main thing in life.
In Duck.
No, as in Donald Slusos.
All right.
And a very, very big music promoter in Scotland. And I said to him, look, just don't take drugs. Don't listen to the people who tell you that they want you to play different kinds of music.
Sound advice.
And he was so fresh-faced. Now he's a multi-millionaire. He's got one of those very expensive, like £500 haircuts, which is all kind of flopping all over his face.
£500
and the whole of Glastonbury was watching this guy and rocking away to him, and I thought to myself, that's incredible.
He's taken all your advice.
He's followed my advice,
and he's now made something of his life.
And become incredibly successful. Yeah, we've got some Paolo Nutini now. You can tell us if you like it.
Yeah. Okay.
Your kind of music, actually.
let's come there. You said initially he stands on stage with an acoustic guitar. The guy.
No, I didn't say that. It's
No,
kind of acoustic kind of
the
music.
guy is the sound of
You've got to
this.
think if you're actually singing.
This guy's playing a bongo drum. So does Paolo
is all
Nutini
they
play a
can find.
guitar or a bongo?
I'm going to have to find. I'm going to play
This
some
is-
Paolo Nutini.
Yeah, the
This
guy
is the worst
playing
Paolo
this.
Nutini I've ever heard.
What's the name of those drums? Tom-toms. Right.
Tom-toms.
He's got a pair of bongos, a pair of tom-toms, and there's no sign of an acoustic guitar for a million miles. So I don't know who you were listening to. This guy's not got.
I'm not sure this even is Paolo Nutini.
Well, he certainly hasn't. I mean, so far, all I've heard are a pair of bongos, a pair of tom-toms. What's that other sound? Is that a trumpet?
Yeah, here we go. Look. Yeah, shut it off. I'll play this.
No guitar.
Yeah, this is a better song.
Where are you playing this from?
This is from my phone.
Oh, yeah, is this going to work?
Yeah,
How are you
should
going to
do.
play this? You put this through the system?
No, it should just work.
I was perched outside in the pouring rain,
There you go.
trying to make myself a seal. Then I'll float to you, my darling.
That sounds like some guy in a pub, on the outskirts of Glasgow.
Although not the most honest means of travel, it gets me there nonetheless.
Well, that doesn't sound like the bloke we've just been listening
No.
to.
No.
I'm telling you, this.
I think what they were playing was some mad Paolo somebody else.
This guy's an
With
imposter.
a trumpet. I have no idea what that
That
was.
fella, to me, sounded like some bloke in a £15 a night boozer on the outskirts
Well, that's because I'm
of
playing it on my
Glasgow.
iPhone. But
Yeah.
that's Paolo Nutini. I mean, well, I see what I'll give it to them and they can play it properly because it's really good.
Yeah,
Anyway,
he's-
what I'm saying to
I
you is
believe
that
you, yeah.
here's somebody who followed my advice and has now become incredibly successful in the music business.
Yeah,
Unlike Larry Hagman, who's now dead.
Well, of course he's dead, because if he got to the age of 83 or 84, he'd had 2 liver
Well,
transplants.
what I'm saying is he didn't benefit from any advice that you gave
He
him.
had 2 liver transplants, right, due to the fact that he used to drink a bottle of whiskey a day
Yeah.
on the set of Dallas, which incidentally is a facet of his life which I don't encourage. I don't think anybody should drink a bottle of whiskey a
No.
day. I wouldn't recommend that, honestly.
Bottle
But
of Pinot Grigio, perhaps.
Well, yeah, that wouldn't be too dangerous. But don't follow this advice, folks, just in case you have a susceptible sort of set of organs which might get damaged by a bottle of Pinot Grigio a day. You know.
A susceptible set of organs.
yeah.
Yeah.
But,
That's enough medical advice.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, he looked incredibly good if he was drinking a bottle of whiskey a day, I tell you. I mean, the way
Well,
he
you look
stood
pretty
up to
good
it.
considering how much you were drinking in that picture as well.
What do you mean? I'm not drinking anything in that picture. Are you mad?
Well, you're very fresh-faced, is all I'm saying.
I'm just alert, mate. It's just called being alert. No, but getting back to the World Cup and US and all that kind of stuff, what are you going to do when they go out? Are you going to change your allegiances again?
Well, I'm not going to consider the fact that they're going out because, in fact, I think they're going to beat Belgium. I think they're going to get to the quarterfinals because the one thing that the USA do is they always do better in the World Cup than anyone imagines. I mean, they got into the last 16 last time in South Africa as well.
Yeah, no, they did very well.
And I think and talk to me after they've got to the quarterfinals is what I'd say.
Yeah, well, if they do. Incidentally,
Do you know what the time is, by the way?
What's the time?
It's time to stop talking for a minute so that we can do something else.
Okay, because I want to talk to you about Luke Shaw.
Okay.
The ludicrous amount of money that
It
young
is.
man's going to pick up and
Yeah.
how it's going to absolutely wreck the
I
finances
mean,
of
imagine if
football.
you were at the age of 18, as I was saying earlier, getting that
Unbelievable.
kind of money, you'd go
Unbelievable.
mad, wouldn't you?
I went off to Nottingham, moved into digs with 2 other blokes. We had a landlady who used to cook our dinner
Imagine
in
if
the
you had
evenings.
160 grand a week coming in.
No, it's what I'm saying, and we used to live on £7 a week.
Yeah.
Now, I know it was a long time ago and all that kind of stuff, but that was at the age of 18. That was my first change of life from living at home to living somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it's similarly for him because he's, down in Southampton where his parents come from and all that. It's just an amazing lifestyle change.
I know. Shocking. Absolutely shocking. Mike Porky Parry and myself, Mike Graham, will be back very, very shortly right here on TalkSport.
On DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. Talk Sport.
I was perched outside in the pouring rain, trying to make myself a sail. Then I'll float to you, my darling, with the evening on my tail. Although not the most honest means of travel, it gets me there nonetheless. I'm a heartless man at worst, babe, and a helpless one at best. Darling, I'll leave yours here
That's Paolo Nutini, That's the real Paolo Nutini. Sounds good, isn't it?
I don't wish to be unkind or critical, but that sounds very average to me.
Does it?
Yeah, that sounds like a busker. That sounds like a bloke with a, as you quite rightly said, with an acoustic guitar, singing a jolly sort of folk song in a pub in Glasgow.
Well, that got into the top 10, that song, I think you'll find.
I don't think it did.
Yeah, I did.
Top 10 what? Top 10 folk album.
The guy, you should have seen him
charts.
at Glastonbury tonight. The guy's playing to like thousands, hundreds of thousands of people at
Well,
Glastonbury.
maybe a lot of people came down from Glasgow to cheer him on or something like that. But that you're trying to make out this guy's an international superstar musician.
Yes, he is.
Utter nonsense.
Because he took my advice.
Boulder Dash.
Anyway, there's a lot of reaction on your support of Larry Hagman and Dallas. Here's one from Tom in Dorset.
Yes.
Oh no, that's not that. That's not the one I want to read out. Hang on. Here's one from.
Is that rather offensive?
Yeah. Well, it just says, "Dear Mr. Graham, are you Porky's carer, or are the men in white coats waiting outside?"
Oh no, you see.
Ask Porky if he thinks the Death Star is real.
The Death Star?
Yeah.
What's the
That'll
Death
be
Star?
something you don't know, but that's another Star Wars question.
Oh, is
yeah,
it?
you got yourself on Clips of the Week last week because of Star Wars.
Oh, was that
Because you couldn't remember Obi-Wan Kenobi's name.
Oh, yeah.
Here's one. Does Porky own a Stetson? Does he wear it at home, strutting about in front of a mirror, pretending he's JR?
No, of course not. I just like the values of the man. And look, it's all very well to say, well, he's a fictional character, but lots of people have lived their lives by the virtues of a fictional character.
Like
for
who?
instance, well, a lot of people, a lot of females I know, live their lives along the principles exhibited in Jane Austen's books.
What?
Because they love the principles of the characters in those books.
What, so you've been out with women who think that they're characters in Jane Austen novels?
No, who admire...
No, you've never married anyone.
No, who
they're all barking as well.
No, who admire the characteristics of the characters, and admire the personalities of the characters in Jane Austen books.
You can't be serious.
I am absolutely serious. Northanger Abbey and the people who were the stars in
that.
They
think you were Heathcliff or something?
No, not at all. not at all. Not at all. But what I'm saying is, for instance, another author who inspired me enormously, and obviously there were fictional characters, was Harold Robbins. Now, when I read the first Harold Robbins books, like
the original airport paperback,
exactly, like the Carpetbaggers, the Betsy was one written about making a new car in Town of Motown. What's it called? Detroit, that's it, absolutely. And all these books inspired me because the characters in them were so strong. I wanted to be like these people. And again, it was an American society, you know what I mean? So I don't think many people or many of our listeners will sympathise with you trying to mock me for being inspired by fictional characters. Fictional characters have inspired people. Don't you get inspired by, I get
inspired by real people, not by fake people.
Do we know if Robin Hood was real or not?
Robin Hood was real.
Okay, well in that case, get inspired by him.
Why?
Because
he was an outlaw.
He took from the rich and he gave to the poor, and that's a principle we should all
a bit like Labour government.
A bit like a Labour government, I have to say, except they take from the rich and just waste it, and even give it to the poor.
No, they just create more poor.
All governments, exactly. All governments take from the rich and then just burn it.
Here's one from Peter, who's in Highton in Liverpool, which I'm sure is a place you know well.
Yes.
And he says, the large hat that J.R. Ewing wears is known as a Stetson. Thank you for that, Peter. He says, the ranch in Dallas is South Fork Ranch, and the ranch actually exists as a tourist attraction in Texas.
It does.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it exists in reality.
But it's
not
there.
a proper work.
It's
well,
there.
no, because they've invented South Fork to take people there to show them where they shot the TV series.
Talking about real places, by the way, Coronation Street now, right, the set, has got a licence for people to get married there. Can you imagine that?
Really?
Imagine that?
When I was working at the Mirror, they got a licence for people to get married in the Mirrors in the editor's office.
No.
Because some couple won a competition to get married in Canary Wharf.
You're mad.
Office, and they got married in Piers Morgan's office.
Yeah, I can't believe it.
They did.
Who would want to do that?
Well, I've no idea, but they won a competition to do it.
And so some couple did it.
Yeah, because you get a licence now actually to marry people in any way you like.
Yeah.
You can marry people at Wimbledon if you
Listen, we've got to talk about this Luke Shaw situation.
Yes, we have.
Because
You're right.
quite apart from the fact that it's an extraordinary financial deal for a young man of 18, you are right in what you said earlier. How long will it be before we get the first £1 million a week footballer?
Yeah, well, it's not going to be long, is it?
Well, I would say it's already happened. I would say Beckham has become a £1 million a week footballer in the last couple of years of his career.
Yeah.
Don't you remember? He went in his very last contract was with PSG.
Yeah.
He went there for an extraordinary amount of money, but gave it all away to charities.
I thought did he not go there so that he didn't actually get paid at all, but he took it all in image rights or something like that?
Well, this is what I'm saying. The alleged story was he gave, I think it was up to £60 million away to French charities.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the deal was there. But in my view, he became the first £1 million a week footballer. I mean, surely Lionel Messi can't be very far short of...
Well, I think the story is
he's
that
on about half a million,
He's not
isn't he?
far off half a million a week.
That's what I'm saying. So the first £1 million a week footballer. Now, the thing is, Mike, when you get
And
to...
Ronaldo apparently is as well.
Ronaldo's bound to be, isn't he? Absolutely bound to be. And in fact, I would imagine his image rights exceed Lionel Messi's, because Ronaldo is what you would call a, quote, pretty boy.
Yeah.
And Messi is more of a sort of, what would you describe it?
Well, Messi's actually like he's like the flip side of Luis Suarez, because he came from a very poor background in Argentina.
Yes.
In fact, he was so underdeveloped, wasn't he, as a child, that he was given growth hormones and all of that.
He suffered from nutrition deficiency, didn't he? Because he
He did.
came from such a poor
and a lot of
background.
the Argentinians, even though we were talking to Tim Vickery about this the other day, even though the Argentine fans are now, singing his praises, he's not really considered to be a sort of bona fide Argentinian, because he went to Spain so long ago.
I totally agree.
And kind of pledged his allegiance to Barcelona.
And I think there's some reluctance within... no, I can't say this. What I'm saying is the Argentinian people don't think that he rushes back to Argentina quickly enough to put on the Argentinian shirt when Argentina are playing in the same way that Maradona did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Ricky Villa and people like that. And I think they think he's gone a bit native as a European, if you see what I mean.
That's what they believe. And he speaks with a sort of Spanish accent rather than Argentinian Spanish accent.
But anyway, look, getting on to the economics, because as you know, I'm a student of economics. In fact, I took it at A level.
Hello. I feel another test coming on.
No, I've got a very good grade.
No, we'll do it next Thursday. We'll do an economics test.
Why do you always have to make me take a test in
Because
something?
you're always saying you're an expert in stuff.
I didn't say I was an expert. I said I was a student. I said I was a student of economics.
A student of economics.
And I was a student of economics. Now,
did you study at university then?
No.
Well, how are you a student of it then?
Because I studied at A-level and got a huge, great
You did
grade.
A-level economics?
I did A-level
Really?
economics, yeah, I did,
Well, the supply and demand and all that.
The
The elasticity of the curve.
Will
Will you be able to talk us through some of that?
Yeah, I could if you wanted me to, but I think
What was your text?
I think the audience would find it rather boring.
What was your text?
Well, one of the questions I answered in my A-level paper...
Just ignoring my questions
No,
now, aren't you?
I'm answering your question, for which I got a massive mark, like 88% or something like that.
Massive mark?
Yeah, something like that, yeah. What it was, the question was...
what are you doing here?
No, it was, school milk is not really free. Discuss.
Right.
Right?
Was that when school milk actually was free?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, before it was taken away.
By Thatcher the milk snatcher.
Well, they called.
Yes.
Is there not some myth about that? That actually
What?
she wasn't the education minister when it finally was taken
I don't
away.
know. Her political opponents always called her Thatcher the milk snatcher, didn't they? For that reason. But used to get a third of a pint of milk free in the playground for all ages.
Yeah.
And that was the question. School milk is not really free. Discuss.
Right.
Now that is a detailed analysis of the way the economy worked in those
It's
days.
true, but it's actually got a political question.
Of course
as well.
it is, yeah. Well, it was a mixed economy, you see, because in those days, people like the coal board and the electricity board and the gas board, they were all nationalised industries, right?
And British Steel.
And British Steel, that's right, yeah. Do you know what? In the holidays, when I worked at the King's School Chester, the best job to get, the holiday job, was at the British Steelworks at Shotton,
Yes.
which is just inside North
The
Wales.
other one was in Ravenscraig up in Scotland, wasn't it?
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
And do you know what you used to do? If you went to the King's School, they thought, well, you're probably honest, probably reliable, probably won't be nicking a load of steel from the plant. So they
How
used to-
wrong they were.
Yeah. No, I never nicked any steel. And
It's
you
quite
go,
hard to nick steel, isn't it?
well, no, you...
What's that in your pocket? I've got a big girder.
Yeah, I've got a girder. Yeah, absolutely right. That's absolutely right, yeah.
What's that down the back of your coat?
yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's just an anvil. But anyway, the point of the story is, all you have to do is go there, and they give you a brush, and you have to brush up on the brush of
Oh,
floor.
the iron filings.
Yeah, the iron
Oh,
filings.
just use a magnet.
Well, no, you used to do it for about 40 minutes in an 8-hour shift, and then you just
If you
sat
had a
there.
massive electromagnet, you could have picked them up.
It was no blinking wonder the economy was falling to bits in those days, because it was
Well, everyone was
so...
on strike as well.
All was on strike. It was so inefficient. The other thing is that where I lived in Chester, we had a car plant at Ellesmere Port called Vauxhall.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And my best mate's
They made
dad,
about one car a year, didn't they?
something like that, because my best mate's dad was he worked at Vauxhall's Ellesmere Port. Now, because we were sort of young and free and all that, I had a job as a reporter on the Chester Chronicle. My mate was a sort of trainee accountant or something.
Right.
And so we both off about 5:30 or 6 o'clock. Few drinks in town. We always bumped into me mate's dad, and he was always in the pub, and he was always plastered because
Right.
he'd been there all afternoon. And his name was my mate's name was Kevin Little, and his name was Mr. Little.
Right.
You just go, hello, Mr. Little, how are you? Yeah, all right, son. Yeah, I'm doing all right. Well, why are you in here today? Well, on strike. I said, right, okay. And the thing is, You used to see him in the pub nearly every day. If you didn't see him in the pub, it was really unusual.
Yeah.
It meant that they were working on
He was
normal...
off- he was off sick.
He was off sick. Yeah.
Well,
but
when I have conversations with anybody who's a bit younger than, I suppose, the age of about 30,
Yeah.
you know, they look at you incredulously when you say, well, you know, when I was growing up, there was one, I was telling my little kids this the other day.
Yeah.
He said, there was one term when I only went to school for half a day a week because there was a power cut going on all the
Right.
time, and it was a
Yeah.
3-day week, and we only had enough power to
Yeah.
have an hour of electricity in the morning and an hour of electricity in the evening.
It was incredible.
And the rest of the time you had to light candles,
Yeah.
and you couldn't watch any TV.
No.
You couldn't do anything. And then when I say to some of these like younger journalists that, you know, there was a period of time when the Times did not publish a newspaper for over a year,
No, it's nearly 2 years.
nearly 2 years,
Yeah.
because of a strike. They just look at you like
I
you're
know,
joking.
I know. Well, I left my first evening paper, the Evening Chronicle in Newcastle, because I got there on sort of January the 10th or something like that, starting the new year. And by June the sort of mid-June or something like that, I'd been on strike for over 23 days. And if the journalists weren't on strike because of some pay dispute, the printers were on strike because of the working hours, or the drivers were on strike because they weren't getting the bonuses. It was such a strike-ridden country, this. It was unbelievable. Anyway, let me get back to the economy, right?
Well, we're going to have another break in a minute. So do you want to wait or do you want to carry on?
Well, I would prefer to be able to deliver it in a, in an orderly fashion, and I'll have to rush into some
Okay.
break.
Well, don't
because
do that then.
It's
Well,
a
just
complex
wait.
issue.
All right.
And though our listeners will understand what I'm talking about, you'll need a bit more time to absorb it.
All right, well, here's something you should absorb while we're about to do that. Lee has tweeted at IROMG, or you can do it at Mike Parry 8, of course, or at TS Extra Time. Young Porky looks like Richard Dreyfuss from Jaws. Which I think should be quite flattered by in that picture. And then Andy says, Paolo Nutini supported Led Zeppelin at the O2 Arena a few years back.
Did he?
So just so you know. And here's another one that
So
says...
he's such a massive, great international star. He's a warm-up act for a group that packed up 30 years ago, yeah? Is that right? Is that right?
You have no idea, do you?
You've just told me. He was
So that's how
warm-up
you
man.
describe Led Zeppelin.
A warm-up man for a group that packed up 35 years ago. Huh?
He took
Yeah.
my advice, unlike
Famous.
you, and he's now a very successful multi-millionaire pop star. I rest my case. This is Paolo Nutini. He's Mike Parry. I'm Mike Graham. More coming up.
But the flames couldn't go much higher. We find God and religions to paint us with salvation.
Talk Sport in Brazil. Every game, every goal, every day. Live.
The 2014 FIFA World Cup, Brazil.
Hey, Talk Sport. Welcome to the jungle, man.
This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. There's lots and lots of pictures being posted now on social media, Mr. Parry, I can say,
Are there?
of stunted up pictures, I think most of them are, of you with JR, of you being arrested by the police in Dallas for one reason or another, being led away. Another couple here of just reacting to that picture I sent out of you. Here's one of you and Bill Clinton, actually, which is rather amusing.
Oh,
I'll have to
see.
retweet that one out. It looks as if you're one of his special advisors. People can do amazing things now with these pictures.
I nearly was a special advisor to Bill Clinton.
Oh, don't be
Bill
ridiculous.
Clinton and I got on very well together. I went to see him in the governor's mansion in Little Rock in Arkansas, and we became good friends. I had Bill Clinton's.
Well, maybe you should get him on the show then. if you're such good friends
I had Bill Clinton's mobile phone number, or his cell phone number, as they call it in America, up to 3 days before he won the presidential nomination for the Democratic Party.
Did
Okay?
you?
How about that?
Yeah.
How about that?
I never saw you at the party at the Ritz in New York
I went
when he won the New York nomination.
What do you mean when he won the New York nomination?
Well, when he won the New York nomination, you know, when they,
I
how,
see
you
what
know
you
how
mean.
the system works.
No.
They have to go around all the states.
Oh, yes, I know that.
And they have to get nominated by each individual
No,
state.
no.
And they have to get enough votes from each state in
Sorry,
order to
mate.
run for president.
Sorry, mate, that's small fry to me. What I
Is it?
went to was, I
Well,
went...
New York is considered to be one of the biggest bits to win.
Yes, I know,
So
but
you weren't there.
No, I was at the inauguration party in Washington, D.C. on the night he was inaugurated as the President of the United States of America.
I'm talking about the
as
campaign.
a guest of his mother at his mother's
You
ball.
sure you weren't being taken by the British Embassy, who you were in the pocket of?
No, not
You were
at
turned
all.
up in the British Embassy.
No,
Rolls-Royce.
not at
Anyway,
all.
listen, tell us about this economic theory of yours about
Okay.
milk, because that's what we're
And
supposed
by
to
the
be
way,
doing.
can I remind everybody that we had a podcast out this morning,
Yes.
right, for last night's show.
Yes.
Which was very good indeed.
Yes.
Except that for some unknown reason, it slipped through my electronic devices.
All
so,
right.
so I'm going to be
So
putting
your
that out.
machine didn't put it out. Put it out now.
I'm going to put it out in the next few minutes.
Because the next podcast won't be available for about 12 hours.
That's
so
right. So
once we finish here, you can listen to the podcast from yesterday.
Exactly. So when I leave here at 4 o'clock, kids, I shall put out the podcast.
And there
for last
was,
night's show.
without wishing to sound like we're blowing our own trumpets, there was a particularly sparkling piece of repartee
There was.
between the two of us and Andy Jacobs and Adrian Durham
Yeah.
in Brazil,
Yeah.
which was played out through most of the day yesterday on TalkSport, and which you can hear on the podcast that Mr. Parry is about to tweet out. We'll play it out a little bit later on in this show as well.
Yeah, we will indeed. Yeah, absolutely. Maybe after I've gone, so that
Very possibly.
so that the people will still want to listen, even though
Yes.
I'm not here. You see
Yes,
what I mean,
that's
Mike?
true,
yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, the economic.
So tell us about your economic
well, I will.
text on milk.
I will. Well, never mind about milk. Let's talk about the present. Now, what I'm saying is, when a young man of 18 accumulates that much money,
Yes.
you are eventually going to, skew the economy.
Easy for you to say.
No, they're going to skew the economy. Now, let me tell you what happened in the 1970s, right? What happened in the 1970s was that the price of oil tripled. Now, the reason it tripled was because
Because they formed OPEC, didn't they?
well, they formed OPEC, you're absolutely right, and all of a sudden, smarter people than had been around previously went and visited all the Arab nations and said, you're sitting on a gold mine here, this
Yeah.
is yours, but most of it's been pumped out of the ground by American oil companies who are taking a disproportionate amount of the wealth from it.
Yeah.
And they said, right, we're going to have it back. So they took it. Now, then they suddenly become the wealthiest nations in the world. But what happened in the 70s...
And isn't it ironic that they're now buying football clubs?
Exactly.
It brings us all back
Exactly.
to the same circle, doesn't it?
Exactly. But what I'm saying is, in the 70s, the Arab nations accumulated so much wealth, it wasn't just the price rise of oil that caused the economic downturn in the 70s,
No.
which was the worst one since the Second World War. It was the fact that so much wealth was being sucked into the Middle East, and they weren't spending it again. They were literally hoarding it. They were literally putting hundreds of
Well, they were
billions of
spending it in
pounds.
their own countries, I suppose, weren't they? Because that
Well-
was when they created the structure that now exists.
They actually were. They were building, great roads, great buildings, great health services, all that kind of stuff. But what they weren't doing was they weren't reaching out to the rest of the world. So that money was literally stuck in the Middle East.
Yeah.
The rest of the world was suddenly running out of money because it was all going back to Arab nations through revenues in petrol and oil. So
And in this country, people were beginning to rely more on oil and less on things like
exactly.
fossil fuels, like
Exactly.
coal. Coal mines were all being closed down.
exactly.
But
So-
also, productivity in this country was not happening at the rate at which it should have done.
Yeah.
And all the big companies were moving all of their productivity out to China and Japan and all
yeah,
these
but you
places.
see,
right?
when oil and petrol was very, very cheap in the 25 years after the war, productivity didn't matter so much as it did when you had to get value
Right.
for money and all that kind of stuff. So that's what happened then. And
Where
what's
are you going with this, by the way?
Well, where I'm going
It's
is
got to do with Luke Shaw.
well, what's got to do with Luke Shaw is what I'm saying is if you accumulate too much wealth around one person, one country, one group of people, society is going to suffer.
Yeah.
And eventually football is going to become so wealthy that the trickle-down effect will in fact not even work. And the trickle-down effect of economics, Mike, is that if you're a wealthy man, you employ cleaners,
Yeah.
you employ people to drive your cars, wash your cars,
Cook
do your
for you.
gardens, cook for you.
Yeah.
Fix the roof.
But there's
on-
only so
on your
many
house.
you can employ, is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. And then the wealth sits in a bank because you've got so much wealth you don't know what to do with it. And it's
Although
no
if you
good.
look at something like, say, what Ryan Giggs and some of the class of
Yeah.
92 got involved with buying that football club up in the northwest.
And they bought restaurants
And they bought restaurants.
hotels
So that's
and all
beginning to
sorts of
happen
things.
as well.
Of
And,
course it
a
is.
lot of them do buy properties, don't they?
Of course it is, but what I'm saying is, if you suddenly get a class of person in this country, the footballers, who have so much wealth they do it. I mean, David Beckham can't possibly spend his wealth. He's
No.
got £165 million.
Right.
Now, if every footballer becomes that wealthy, you are then going to get a clique of people who are accumulating so much wealth, it's going to stop the wealth going to other
So
parts
what
of
are you
society.
saying? They shouldn't be allowed to accumulate any more than a certain amount, then?
What I'm saying is...
You're not leaning towards
what
the
I'm
old
saying
socialism
is,
here, are you?
No, I'm not leaning towards socialism because I think socialism is an absolutely illiterate form of management of wealth. Illiterate in that you give it away to people who don't know how to control it or use it and don't use it properly and it's not reproductive and all that kind of stuff. You understand what I'm saying?
I do understand
You
what
following?
you're
You
saying.
following?
I actually agree with you.
Yeah,
Right?
but the trouble is, if I mean, what happened in... You know why the Great Recession happened in 1926-27? Was because a group of men in America, and they were Rockefeller, Vanderbilt, P.J. Morgan...
He was a detective, wasn't he?
Henry... Who?
Vanderbilt.
No, leave me alone, Mrs. Vanderbilt.
No, that was a song by Wings.
Yeah, that was railways. He built railways, Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt built railways.
Yeah.
P.J. Morgan was a
Who
banker.
was a detective then?
Well, I don't know.
Van
Van der
der
Valk,
Valk,
wasn't
wasn't
it?
it? Yeah,
Van der Valk
yeah.
or something. I don't know what
In
you're
Guernsey.
talking about, you
In
idiot.
Guernsey.
And then Rockefeller obviously
Yeah.
was into Standard Oil.
Yeah.
Henry Ford built the cars, obviously. Now, those men accumulated so much wealth between them, right? That's why America went into recession, because they had so much
That's
wealth.
a very simplistic analysis.
No, it's not. Do you know what happened?
Like a big red mark from me if you'd done that in your economics exam.
No. I'll tell you what happened was, for instance, the Ford Motor Company were producing so many cars at cut price so that more people would buy them. They didn't pay their workers enough. Therefore, their workers didn't have enough money to buy the products that the company was producing. Therefore, they went into recession because they couldn't afford to spend any money on anything, and so did everybody else, because a group of about 8 men accumulate... I mean, do you know, for instance, that P.J. Morgan was the wealthiest man in the world?
You mean J.P. Morgan?
J.P. Morgan, that's the guy I mean. Wealthiest man in the
P.J.
world.
Crowby you're thinking of, the guy whose pants used to always split when he was singing on the turn.
And I was only 24 hours from Tulsa.
No, that was Gene Pitney, wasn't it?
That was Gene Pitney, that's right, yeah. Well, I knew somebody like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is...
What is the point?
Well,
It's nearly time for the news.
I know,
You told
no.
me nothing.
No, what I'm saying
10
is...
minutes of absolute waffle.
Morgan became the richest man in the world with a total wealth of £436 million.
Right. Amazing you've remembered that figure.
Well,
I'm sure you haven't just plucked it out of the air.
No. I've read my economics books. Okay, I know what I'm talking about.
Right.
In today's equivalent wealth, that would be 436 billion.
Yeah.
Right?
And what's your point?
Well, my point is, imagine one man in the world somewhere having 436 billion pounds.
Yeah.
It would literally have sucked
Yeah, there's
about...
a couple of them in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, I think there is. And that sucks about 2% of the whole gross domestic product of the world out
So
of
what?
the financial system. Well, it means we'll go poor. And it means recession will happen again.
Really?
And what I'm saying is footballers are beginning to get to the head of that, that Christmas tree of the wealthiest people in society. 18-year-old boy, 160,000 a week, £30 million transfer. We are heading... to...
Well, should we put a wage cap on them then?
Well, what I'm saying is football could be, heading to hell in a handcart with these sort of balmy financial
Is that it?
plans.
So it took 10 minutes to get
No.
point.
Yeah, but I had to explain the background to it because you were too daft to be able to understand
Unbelievable.
where I'm coming from.
Absolutely incredible.
World Cup wipeout! Nothing but blistering World Cup football all summer on Talk Sport.
Welcome to the jungle.
We touched down in Rio and headed to the pub.
And got on a Sylvesters.
Then straight to a club. Brazil's at the bar, drinking all the booze.
And Guppy's in the toilet for a power snooze.
Quinny pulled a bird who said her name was Venus. When he got her home, he found out she had a rather small birthmark in the shape of Bobby Moore.
Every game, every goal, every day of the 2014 FIFA World Cup, Brazil.
World Cup.
Here we go. Come on. It's World Cup wipeout.
Come on!
Talk Sport. Talk Sport.
Licensed broadcaster of the 2014 FIFA World Cup Brazil.
Absolute brilliant goal.
World Cup Extra Time on Talk Sport.
Radio that will grab you by the cojones.
Every game, every goal, every day.
On DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM.
World Cup Extra Time on Talk Sport.
I'm Mike Graham and he's Mike Parry and you're listening to the Two Mics on Extra Time. We're keeping you entertained throughout the night. Greg Dyke's got a plan. Roy Hodgson's working on a project. English players are too expensive to get to play first-team football in the Premier League. So what happens? We get Adam Lallana go to Liverpool for a deal that will make him £20 million over the next 5 years. And Luke Shaw signing for Man United at the age of 18, where he will make approximately £160,000 a week. What could possibly go wrong?
For the money, I think later on in life, you'll see that'll be a bargain. Luke potentially has a long way to go in his development, and you'll see the best of him, I think, now at Man United. Luke's a grounded person and a nice lad. He'll be fine, I think, in that environment. I think, like, again, I say, Luke needs that challenge now. I think he's at a stage where he needs to progress and be tested and challenged on the pitch and off the pitch, and I think he'll get that at Man United. And like I was saying, that the fact that he's going to such a big club, I don't think he'll faze him. You looked at him in the England squad and playing in the World Cup, he's 18 years old, playing in the World Cup. I thought he handled the whole situation really well.
That's Paul Williams, Mike, the former Southampton Academy coach, who actually thinks 30 million quid for Luke Shaw is, in his words, a bargain. I mean, that's how crazy we are now finding ourselves in the world of football.
I see, trouble looming here, and I'm sure Luke Shaw can handle it, and he looks like a very mature young man when he's playing football. He looks like he's totally in charge on the field, but off the field, the pressures are enormous. Pressure's on him to succeed on one of the biggest wages in the Premiership at 18, and the biggest ever transfer for a teenager. I remember the record sum paid by Bill Shankly for a young boy called Alan Evans from Wolverhampton Wanderers to Liverpool. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, and that was less than £100,000. It was £99,999 or something, so as not to make it the first £100,000 teenager. And so what they've paid for Luke Shaw, 30 million, is exactly 30 times that.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It's incredible.
We're still taking your calls. 08717 22 3344. You're listening to Extra Time with Mike Graham and Mike Parry on TalkSport. This is TalkSport Extra Time. Don't forget.
Just before
I'm just going to give out the phone number and the text and all that.
Yeah, but I need to tell you something.
All right. Well, you've got plenty of time to tell me something. You're on the radio show with me. 81089, of course, is the text, and you can find us on social media at Mike Parry 8 at IROMG and at TS Extra Time.
Yeah.
What do you want to tell me?
Well, listen, I've got to tell you. I heard Cammy being interviewed earlier.
Chris Kamara,
Chris Kamara by
Andy Goldstein.
By Andy Goldstein, obviously, and
he ran after a mugger. Amazing.
Yeah, great talk was. Have I ever told you about how I arrested an out of control drunk in a restaurant in Germany with leading English footballing star Frenchman Frank Leboeuf?
Yes.
Have I told you?
You have told me that story.
Well, you have told me.
You've told me that story about 20 times.
No, I haven't.
You've told it on air about 30 times.
No, I haven't.
You have.
I haven't.
Yes, you have.
I bet I'll listen to
it was during the World Cup, wasn't it, in 2006?
That's right, in Germany, yeah.
In Germany. And you were in a bar, and there was a group of rowdy...
Well, it was more than a bar, it was an exclusive restaurant.
Well, it wasn't that exclusive, because it was full of a bunch of rowdy England supporters, was it not?
No, they came in and tried to get in, that was the point, and the management said, excuse me, sir, but we do not have a table for you. And
it was a French restaurant, wasn't it?
No, it was more like, excuse me, sir, we do not have a table for you, we'll have to leave.
We're asking the questions.
Oh, no, come on. You sound like someone from Hello.
By the way, Peter in Huyton, who's a big fan of the show, has updated this with another one of his facts from his fact book.
Excellent. What's he say?
He says, Mike van der Valk was a detective based in Amsterdam, and the series was made by Granada.
Oh, excellent.
I'm thinking of that one. The one it was. What was it? Not Bernstein. It was something. The one from the Channel Islands.
That was John Nettles.
Yeah, it was. But what was his name? Bergerac.
That's right. Yeah, but anyway, listen, never mind about Bergerac. What about Frank Leboeuf?
Yeah, but I've heard the story a million times.
Well, you think
there can't possibly be anybody left in the entire world hasn't heard it.
You think you have, but our listeners haven't heard it. And what happens is
You've actually just reminded me, because the last time you told this story, we decided what we should do is get Frank Leboeuf actually on the phone and get him to verify the story. So we must do that.
Well,
we'll make a point there in
he would. But
vast production office behind the glass there.
For the listeners who don't know about it and want to know about it, and of course they want to know about it, so we're in this exclusive restaurant.
Tell it quickly.
Well, I'll tell it quickly. And these two or three drunks wander in and they start making trouble. And then when they wouldn't give them a table, they started wandering amongst the tables and pushing the tables and all that. Anyway, Frank Leboeuf and I, who were on tables opposite each other...
So you weren't actually dining with Frank Leboeuf? Your good friend?
No, he's on a separate table, but we waved and said hello and all that kind of stuff. We leapt into action and wrestled two of the drunks to the ground. The other one fled and got their arm at the back and got them to the door and threw them out to the street. And when they tried to make a bit more trouble, the police arrived, the old Polizia, as they're called in Germany, and took them away.
Polizei?
Yeah, that's right.
How you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Polizei.
In green and white cars.
Yeah.
And
they used to have green and white Volkswagens.
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I think they have green and white BMWs these days. And anyway, I just wanted to let you know, because I think I thought our listeners would be interested in that.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for sharing that story, but we will have to make a point of getting Frank Leboeuf on one day, because I'm sure his version of events will be slightly different from yours.
Is that his real name, by the way? Frank the Beef?
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
So, well, I'm only thinking. So in France, when he introduces himself to somebody and he says, "Oh, hello, I'm Frank the Beef."
Yeah.
Is that? I mean,
sounds like a wrestler.
Well, that's what I mean, because there's nobody in this country. You know, it's not like it's only in Wales, isn't it, where you'd see
Well,
Jones
I mean,
the bread.
there's people
You know,
called.
Jones the bread.
I'm trying
or-
to think if there's anybody
Oh,
I know
Jones
has
the
got.
milk.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if I can think of anyone that's got a name. Because a lot of people have got names that they took from their forefathers because of jobs that they did, like Miller.
or
I
Edwards
mean,
the
Miller.
Baker,
Well,
eh?
no, Miller. Baker is a name, right? Lots of people have got the surname Baker. Hunter.
Yeah, but we don't call people
Pirate.
Yeah, but we don't call. I mean, for instance, my dad was a salesman, so
Mr. Salesman.
Yeah, exactly. I don't introduce myself
Well,
as
yeah,
Mike
but
the
I'm not talking
salesman,
about
do
that.
I?
I'm talking about
I mean, do you think-
ancient professions. You know,
you think Frank-
like Mason, for example, is a very common English
I think
name.
Frank LeBeuf's dad was a butcher, and that's
He
why
might
he's known
be.
as
Yeah, he might
Frank
be.
LeBeuf, Frank the Beef.
Cooper's another one. Taylor. These are all names that came from people's professions.
Well, probably originally.
So what
but-
you're saying is actually incorrect.
Yeah, no, but we don't call anybody Martin the Tailor. It's just Martin Taylor.
Yeah,
We
well, that
don't
might
call-
just be a colloquialism.
We
though.
don't call anybody, David the Miller. We just call him David Miller.
But that's partly because of the way that the way that French is structured.
You may be right.
Everything is le something, isn't
I
it?
suppose it's like the Van thing in Holland, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
Robin van Persie.
Yeah.
What's his van
or
mean?
Vincent van Gogh, as
Vincent
you were
van
talking
Gogh.
about yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What's the van bit?
I don't know what it means.
Does it mean like
Well, it might be of.
Yeah.
You know how
yeah,
sometimes, you know,
that's true. That's
like
true.
in the
Could be.
really old English names,
Could be.
you get de something, don't you? Which is
De
actually
Courcy.
it's a Norman thing.
Yeah. Well,
Went from a French invasion.
I mean, a lot of people who played for Southampton had the D bit names.
What
didn't
about Matt Letizia?
they? Matt Letizia, absolutely.
That's not a D, of course, that's
it's
an
a
L.
It's a L. It's a L.
Yeah. By the way,
Yeah.
talking of how about Graham Lasso?
Graham
Played
Lasso.
with Frank LeBeuf.
Yeah, he did.
Everybody
actually,
at Chelsea those days had to have an LE in front of their name.
Frank LeBeuf, Graham Lasso.
Peter Lebernetti.
No, he didn't have it.
No.
And he didn't play in those days anyway.
No, it was a bit before their time.
Goalkeeper in those days would have been...
Would it have been Bosnich? Mark Lebosnich?
Well, for a bit of the time, but he was a bit erratic, old
Yeah, but he
Bossy,
didn't
wasn't
make it into training a lot,
No,
did he?
he didn't, no.
No, but he comes on Talk Sport a lot now.
Yes,
but
he
listen,
does, yeah,
while we're
good
talking
man.
about ancient things, you see that story in the Mail yesterday about Stonehenge? Stonehenge
Unbelievable.
apparently was built by
Yeah.
what they are considering to be possibly sort of cowboy builders because
Yeah.
they don't think it was actually finished on time.
Exactly,
Properly.
that's why it looks so ramshackle.
Yeah.
So for like thousands of years, people have been trying to work out the extremely erratic structure of Stonehenge and, you know, working out that it was built along sunlight lines and moonbeams and all that kind of stuff. And in fact, it's probably the fact that they only half built it in the first place.
Well, that's what they're now saying. I mean, it's a great mystery, though, isn't it?
A bit of it was supposed to be the annex to the main building.
Yeah, well,
which
that's
is
the
very
thing.
odd.
It might have been actually a conservatory.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, in the same paper of the Mail, they had. I mean, I don't know whether you've ever had any building work done by quotes cowboy builders, but it's one of those
Hopefully not.
real absolute kind of blights on sort of
course it
national
is.
society because
Course
so
it
many
is.
people. There's so many of these building firms, and what they're saying in the Mail is there's some website where you're supposed to be able to find out whether people are cowboy builders or not, and they say it doesn't work very well.
Well, I
mean, you've got loads of properties. You must have people that do stuff.
Well, I do have people who do stuff, but I mean, I don't come across cowboy builders very
Really?
much, to be honest. To be honest, like, most of the property I own is, let me see.
Well, it's a slum landlord type
No,
stuff, isn't it?
no, not at all. It's the opposite. I don't think one property I've got is over 25 years old, so you don't need a lot of. I've got a guy who repairs roofs for me, who's a brilliant guy, and he's up on the roof all the time. You know, replacing
Roofer. Is that his name?
No.
Roofer.
Yeah, Bill the Roofer. No, it's not actually. But I always make sure I'm there when these things are being done, so I can
Do you?
keep an eye on them. Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Because,
so how do you do that, though?
Well-
You just stand around?
well, you've got to remember that I went to the University of Trent to do urban estate surveying, and part of the course, one of the papers, was in fact
How
building.
to stand around and look at builders?
No. One was building construction. I mean, I'm not unaware of it, right? And for instance, I can show.
So what? So you can watch somebody repairing a roof and figuring out if they're doing it right?
I certainly can.
Really?
And what's more,
There's another quiz we can give you.
No. What's more?
You're an expert in roofing.
Well, I'm not.
Well.
I'm not unexpert in roofing. If
Are
you see
you?
what
Are
I
you
mean?
not?
Yeah.
What,
And-
sort of 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10, that kind of area?
No, what I do is, and it's quite a basic practice, but it works, and people deride me for it, but it works. If I've got a roofer on the on the top of the building
Yeah.
and all that, what I do is to make sure that we're plugging the right leaks in the right places. I go and get a load of wire coat hangers and I unstretch them. You see what I mean? And then I push them through the ceilings of the no, I know what you're laughing at. Push them through the ceilings.
Well, how long are these wire coat hangers?
Well, quite long. But
How many wire coat hangers do you use?
Oh, I don't know, maybe half a dozen if we've got to trace a leak or something like that, you know what I mean? And
doesn't that just make the plaster come down even in bigger lumps?
No, not at all, not at all. No. It's a practice that I developed myself, and it's very, very successful. And in fact, the building guys that I employ have actually taken on that practice and taken it elsewhere. So I've improved things, and it's a step forward, and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know why we're talking about all that anyway, because that's all irrelevant.
I don't know either.
That's because you came on about cowboy builders, and
well, yeah, because I'm sure that people have had terrible experiences with cowboy builders. I mean, I've not actually amazingly had too many of them, but I mean, every time you kind of hear these stories, you think, well, how do these people still manage to do business? How do they still manage to actually get work?
Well, that's because they pick on vulnerable people. Now, fortunately, as soon as a bloke approaches me, he knows I'm not a vulnerable individual. You know what I mean?
I can see that.
It's not like I'm going to be duped into paying thousands of pounds for repair work.
Well, it depends what time of the afternoon it is, I suppose.
That's a bit harsh. Thousands of pounds for repair work that doesn't need doing. What they do is they pick on old people, and you're seeing this happen all the time, where they knock on the door and they say, "Hello, love, just passing, and I see there's a bow in the, in the level on your roof there. We can fix that for you." And before you know it, poor old person's giving away £16,000 for a job that didn't need doing. That's what cowboy builders are all about, right?
Yeah, I do sometimes wonder, actually, when again watching that whole Glastonbury thing, and it's popping up on TV every now and again when the rains come falling down. And Bobby Gould was saying, I hope the rain stops in the West Country. Whenever I hear about rain in the West Country, I always worry slightly that house that I sold in Wiltshire is underwater again.
Which is on a floodplain, and you sold to
somebody.
No,
it's not on a floodplain. It's just at the lowest point in the village.
Yeah, but it floods, doesn't it?
Well, it has flooded, but it doesn't flood. I don't know how often it now floods.
You even had the cheek to go back there and visit the house when it was flooded, and God knows what you were doing. You gave the new occupants, the people you sold the house to, the ability to say to you, "Why'd you sell us?"
Well, because my daughter wanted to go and see them. That was why.
Yeah. Why? I don't know why. One time, I do remember, I bought an apartment, and I decided to
Have you got the time? Have you got no idea what the time is? You're starting another story.
I decided to put a new kitchen in, and the guys who went in to do it said, "You won't believe this, there is no dividing wall between your kitchen and the kitchen next door. It's just one board of plaster, so we had to build a wall, yeah."
Yeah, well, that's what you get when you become a slum landlord. This is TalkSport Extra Time. He's Mike Parry, I'm Mike Graham. Coming up next, he's got a Coronation Street story for us. This is TalkSport Extra Time. We are the two Mikes. He's Mike Parry, I'm Mike Graham. And not that I wish to in any way suggest that you do live in an entire fantasy world.
Yeah.
After telling us all about Larry Hagman and J.R. Ewing, you've also got some Coronation Street story you want to tell us about.
No, I didn't have a Coronation Street story. What I said to you was, I said, did you see, which I mentioned earlier in the show, in the last hour, that you can now get married, and you said if I get married in Piers Morgan's office, you can get married on the Coronation Street set. Now, the point is that the
would you ever do that? I mean, if you found the first Mrs. Parry, would you ever marry? Would you have a church wedding? Would you?
Well, no.
White dress and all that.
No, I'd go to a register office and do it there, quiet ceremony and all that kind of stuff. You know.
But you're a massive Coronation Street fan.
Well, but you see, the point is, you see, you're getting confused now with why we talk about Coronation Street. Tina was the main female attraction in Coronation Street. She's been bumped off, right?
Has she?
And that
what killed?
Yeah, killed.
Really?
Yeah, killed. She was pushed off a veranda or
these
a balcony.
Folks are getting very violent, aren't they?
Yeah. And then when she wasn't actually dead on the ground, her assailant went down and picked up a metal pipe and clubbed her to death.
Dear me.
Oh, it's horrible. But it's been very exciting, believe me. The whole plot of the intrigue, all that kind of stuff. Now, she's gone, and what's happened now is that's left a vacuum, and vacuums, of course, always have to be filled. And so the latest real pin-up is a lady called Eva Price, and she plays barmaid Kath Tildesley, right? And she is a really glamorous woman, and she's in the papers all the time, and that means that actually now the first Mrs. Parry nominations, which were headed up by Bev Callard.
Have you got some pictures of this woman? Where is she?
She's on page 2 and 3 of the Sun today, but she has her clothes on. It's not a page 3 day because it's Saturday, so that's what I'm saying. But she's a very attractive lady. And for years and years, I did tell our listeners that Bev Callard, who played...
She's getting on a bit now, isn't she?
Well, look, she's a lovely girl, and I met her once, and she came on the show that we were doing in Marbella, Mr. Brazil and myself, with Paul Breen Turner, and she's a lovely lady, all that kind of stuff. But, however, She has a settled life, so my ambitions to invite Bev Kellogg to be the first Mrs. Parry, I'm afraid, have now gone by the board. And
no, she is rather nice. Very young for you, though. So far too young for you.
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, lovely lady, and she'll have a great and wonderful life. But the idea of being so deluded by a programme that you'd actually go on the set and get married there, so that in years to come your wedding pictures would show you, in the Rover's Return pulling a pint.
Well, yeah,
you know what I mean?
People do that, don't they? Now it's quite nice. I mean, like people get married. I mean, people get married at Goodison Park. People get married at Anfield.
Well,
now,
getting married at Goodison Park is a real place. Goodison Park is a real place, and you could say it is a temple to a lot of people. It is a cathedral to people.
You wouldn't get married there?
Well, yeah, I wouldn't mind getting married there. You'd
be surrounded by your thespian mates.
Thespian?
Oh, your thespian mates that we talked about before.
No, they're not my mates.
Crowd.
No, they're the friends of the chairman, Mr. Bill Kenwright, who's the world's biggest theatre impresario, and that's a different case altogether. But hey, listen, I want to tell you this story about Uruguay. Okay. Yeah. Now, I've done a lot of research on Uruguay since they. You
said you'd been there.
Yeah, I've been there.
Montevideo.
Yeah. Montevideo. But I wanted to check up on things before I got any facts wrong. Did you know, for instance, because obviously we're still talking about Suarez, did you know that the guy who runs Uruguay, I think he's actually the Prime Minister, or it could be the President, I'm not sure, but I'll find out in a minute.
What's his name?
Well, this is he's President, and his name is Jose Mujica. And did you know...
Sure that's the right pronunciation?
Jose Mujica is a total peasant. No.
I'm sure Mujica is not right. How do you spell it?
Mujica. Now,
J in Spanish is not ever a J, is it?
Well, it's Mujica then, or whatever. Now, the point is, I hope our millions of listeners don't think I'm being rude or abusive to the leader of another country. I'm not.
You just called him a peasant.
The guy is a practising peasant. This is honestly
a practising peasant.
Honest to God,
it's not a religion.
No, I swear to you.
What's your religion? Peasant.
Because he is a man of the people.
Church of England?
No, he lives in a broken down hut with a leaky roof, right? And
you sure he's the president?
Yeah, I'm certain. Honestly, I've done all the research on it. He lives in this ramshackle. Here, I've got it here. He is a man of the people. He lives in a ramshackle farm where he works the land with a hand-drawn plough. He draws drinking water from a well, and he gives away 90% of his salary to live on the average Uruguayan income of £485 a month. And this is because he has never given in to his principles that he wants to be one of the people, for the people, and runs the country on that basis. So when I call him a peasant,
does he not have a presidential palace then, like most people do?
He lives in a hut with a leaky roof. I'm telling you, ramshackle farm. It's described as in the official literature about the president, Jose Mujica, and he prides himself. What are you laughing at?
Because I don't believe it's described as a ramshackle hut in the so-called official What official literature are you talking about?
Literature that has been cleared by the Uruguayan authorities.
What? So they cleared the words ramshackle hut?
Absolutely, yeah. But he prides himself on describing himself as the world's poorest leader, and he goes around saying, "I am the world's poorest leader."
Well, he doesn't call himself a peasant, though, does he?
But he is. He lives a peasant lifestyle, deliberately. He wears second-hand clothes. He has no desire or ambitions to acquire wealth. We were talking about some wealthy leaders of Middle East countries before and all that kind of stuff. But that's exactly what he's doing. Now, what I'm saying is...
So the average week... Did you say weekly wage is £485 or monthly?
Monthly.
So imagine how Luis Suarez is getting on there.
Well, I mean, he earns £200,000 a week.
Yeah.
So that's £800,000 a month, compared to the president of Uruguay, who earns £485 a month.
Amazing.
How about that?
I know, it's ridiculous.
I mean, that is incredible. I mean, if Suarez was a particularly generous man, as I'm sure he is, he could go and see the old president.
And fix his roof for him.
Well, not just fix his roof, he could buy him a proper house, couldn't he? And
he might not want it. He might shun him. By the way,
yeah.
Talking of the Sun this morning, we've seen that story on the front page about this little boy who's facing an axe from his local football team because he did Luis Suarez. And we often argue about this, don't we, where people say, oh, well, footballers are not role models. Jason Cundy and I are always arguing about it. He's like, why should footballers be role models?
Yeah, exactly.
And I said, well, whether you like it or not, unfortunately, they are. And this kid bit one of his opponents during a game, and he's only about 8 or 9 or something, and he sank his teeth into the guy.
Yeah, and the thing is, the picture of him in the Sun shows him in a Liverpool shirt. Now, this is getting to be a problem for Liverpool, isn't it? And I tell you what, as well, we're looking at tomorrow morning's papers. Kenny Dalglish has written a column in the back of the Mirror, and he actually, as you well know, had to deal with the Suarez problem when...
he okayed the T-shirt thing, didn't he? That was the problem for him.
Yeah, wasn't that the racist incident rather than the biting incident?
But do you remember when they all came out wearing supporting Luis Suarez T-shirts?
Of course I did.
Which in the end, what people mostly thought cost him his job.
Yes, they did, because it seemed that Liverpool had taken perhaps the wrong attitude towards what was a very serious offence.
I mean, they'd effectively done what Uruguay are doing now by defending him, no matter what.
But nevertheless, this column in the Mirror, and it's headlined King Kenny, because that's the way people in Liverpool and of Liverpool Football Club think about him, says, cop legend who gives it to you straight. And the headline says, you don't just turn your back on a player for doing wrong. Right now, Suarez needs our help and understanding. And he goes on to say, it's my belief that when you bring a player to a football club, it becomes your responsibility. And I think you'll find that the background to that statement, Mike, is that Kenny Dalglish, of course, saw the Hillsborough tragedy as being a responsibility of Liverpool Football Club, and that's why he went to dozens of the funerals, as many as he could, and that's why he will always be absolutely adored by the the followers of Liverpool Football Club, because of the way he tried to support so many people during that dreadful, terrible time that the city and Liverpool fans in particular had to go through.
And his words will be taken very seriously by Brendan Rodgers and by the owners, of course as well. This is TalkSport Extra Time. We are the two mics. We've got loads more to do. Keep your calls coming in, of course. We'll keep taking them. 08717 22 3344. This is TalkSport. TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. Mike Porky Parry is here, and Paulie has sent this in at IROMG, at TS Extra Time actually, saying, MG, help me please, make him stop. My goodness, Mike Parry, you can tell a tale. What is the point? I'm totally lost. Now, I don't know which story of yours he's referring to, but all I can say is that, you ramble on to such an extent that people lose the plot. With the greatest, I don't know what you're talking about.
With the greatest respect to our listeners, that must be somebody struggling to understand the philosophy of the world economy.
Well, it's very possible.
That's what I suspect.
Here's somebody else who's struggling. Peter, who's sent this in, he says, Master of Economics Porky Parry said 100,000 times 30 equals 30 million. He's only out by a factor of 10, because 100,000 times 30 is 3 million. Numpty.
What?
100,000 times 30 is only 3 million.
Yeah, I know that.
Well, why did you say it was 30 million?
I didn't say that.
Didn't you?
No.
Well, why does he think you said it?
Well, I don't know. You wasn't listening properly. Right. How about this one, Mike, that I picked up? This is great. We all know who the boss is, don't we?
The boss?
Boss. In American terms, when we were there in the 80s, 90s, the boss.
The boss, Bruce Springsteen.
Thank you, Bruce Springsteen. So, listen to this. American showbiz website, TMZ, or TMZ as we say in this country, TMZ, asked Bruce Springsteen, pictured, about the latest Suarez incident. They said, what do you think about the biting incident involving Luis Suarez? To which the boss replied, well, what are the rules about biting in the World Cup?
Now, that sort of slightly dilutes my support for the American team, it has to be said.
Exactly. Asked the evidently bemused rocker, who's now 64. He said if there isn't one, there probably should be one. So that was his verdict on it, isn't it?
Very strange.
But it does say that more Americans than ever are following the
well, this is it. I mean,
Brazil.
I bet you any money. I mean, because the last the Portugal game, in fact, because I haven't seen a figure for the Germany game. I think it was bigger. The figure for the audience, for the TV audience for the Portugal game, was bigger than for the audience for the basketball playoffs.
That's right.
Which tells you how huge it's getting.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's talk about another place where biting. I'm not going to say biting is de rigueur, but certainly some bad behaviour by players is not so.
High passion
is not so frowned upon as it is here, and that's in Turkey, Galatasaray. Now, I must have missed the plot when maybe it was when I was away. The Galatasaray is not being run by Roberto Mancini anymore.
No, he's out.
Did he get kicked out after the Champions League exit?
Yeah, I think he did. I mean,
maybe he did, and it kind of passed me by. So David Moyes is now being hawked as the possible new leader of Galatasaray.
Yeah. Can you remember any European manager, certainly no British manager, who's gone to Turkey and come back with an enhanced reputation?
No.
You don't get long to make your mark there. And I think that, for Davy Moyes to go into the culture of another country, because he's only ever worked in Scotland and England, right? For him to go into the culture of another country and try and re-establish his reputation there, purely, it seems to me, based on the fact that Galatasaray are in the Champions League, and therefore, you know, he quite liked what he did in the Champions League with United. In fact, that was his most successful competition, wasn't it? The Champions League. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So he wants another go at that. But based on that, I would say, you know, I know David Moyes pretty well, or at least I did when he was at Everton. I haven't spoke to him since he's left Manchester United.
Given what you've said about him.
Well, not at all, not at all. He knows where my loyalties lie.
I've heard Alan Brazil picking you up on it several times when you do the paper review on
he knows where my loyalties lie. But what I'm saying is, I would advise him strongly not to go, because I think the culture, you know, adjustment...
Well, it's one thing to go to somewhere like Spain or France or Germany,
totally
but Turkey is a very different kettle of fish.
Remember, Turkey is the country that literally straddles Europe and Asia.
Yeah.
You go over the Bosphorus Bridge and you're going from Europe into Asia. And the difference, really, between the two communities within Istanbul itself is enormous.
Yeah.
And I think it would be incredibly difficult.
It's a fascinating place to go. I mean, I went to Turkey on holiday, funnily enough, last year for the first time.
Oh,
I wasn't in Istanbul, I was down on the coast. And it's a very, very kind of unusual place, because it's unlike, you don't get the sense that it's a European country driving around it, you know?
No, well, of course you don't. I mean, you know, one of the most famous buildings in Istanbul is the Blue Mosque. And you don't see that sort of architecture in Europe.
Well, you do now.
Well, yeah, but I mean, what I'm saying is, not having been there so long, you see what I mean? You know, you see architecture like in Europe built 25 years ago, something like that, but not 500 years ago, and that sort of thing. And I agree, but I'd advise him not to go. I mean, Graham Souness went there, and he got himself into a bit of a trouble, because Graham Souness is such a passionate man. During one game, he picked up the flag, didn't he, of the team which he was in charge, went and planted it in the centre circle of the opposition's ground, and
all hell broke loose.
Nearly caused a riot. That's right.
Well, that's the thing. And also, the other problem they've got in Turkey at the moment, I think, is Besiktas and one of the other teams have been... Did they not get kicked out of the Champions League because of some match-fixing allegations?
Yes, match-fixing allegations.
And so, you know, I mean, there's only a couple of teams in Turkey that are really good, and one of them's not playing.
Most of them are in Istanbul as well, remember. You know, there's competitive teams there.
Yeah.
I went to Turkey to see the England team get a draw there, which got us through to qualifying for one competition. I can't remember which one it was offhand. And it's a very passionate place, and the people there are very demanding.
They are.
And if David Moyes thinks,
for David Moyes, though, I mean, he's got to think about not wanting to be out of football for too long, because we've seen many managers go out of football and then just not get back in for a long. I mean, look at Martin O'Neill. Martin O'Neill took ages to finally get back into a job now running Ireland.
But he wishes he hadn't.
Well, I don't know. I suppose he's quite happy with that.
Results, haven't they?
Yeah, but I mean, he doesn't have to worry now. I mean, when he took over, they were already out of the World Cup qualification. He's now got this new European qualification scenario to go with, and he's got Roy Keane helping him out when he can spare the time from Aston Villa.
I would advise... Who am I to advise anybody about football?
That's very true.
But no, that's true. But
that was said with a very remarkable sort of a candour that I never normally see.
Well, that's okay, because I do not claim to be the world's greatest football expert, okay? Not the world's greatest.
But this is not just about football, is it? I mean, this is about advising somebody to not go and work in a place that might be bad for them.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, I would advise, on a humanely basis, for David Moyes to take the first available Premier League job that he's offered. Because if he wants to hit back and repair a reputation which was mauled to pieces, really, at Manchester United, he's got to do it in this country, in front of the people who have judged him so far. I think it looks a little bit, and I'm not accusing David of being a coward or anything, a little bit of running away if you go to Turkey now and start trying to pick up your career there, because...
but where does he go here, though? I mean, what job does he go for?
Well, all I was going to say was, quite frankly, if he took a job in Northern Europe...
Yeah.
That, you know, there's quite a bit of focus on Holland and Germany and Spain, we all know that. There's no focus in this country on what's going on in Turkey in a domestic sense.
No, but in the sense of the Champions League, you'd be better off at Galatasaray than, say, doing what Steve McLaren did and going to a sort of a relatively low-level Dutch club, although he did very well with them.
Of course he did, he won the Dutch League.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the problem for David Moyes is that he had his shot on the big time, and I think that's it. I don't think he gets another one.
Well, in that case, why doesn't he settle for another sort of mid-table Premier League club?
Because he hasn't yet got it into his head. I mean, you know as well as I do, we've talked about this before, sometimes humorously, sometimes not.
Yeah.
When you get to a reasonably high level of the in the business we've been in, right?
Yes.
When you the first time or second time you get sacked, you think to yourself, I'm not going to take a job that is not at that level.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely not going to do it. I'm going to wait until something similar comes along. And then something similar doesn't come along. So you have to kind of go somewhere else, and you have to see if you might find your way back. For example, if David Moyes got offered the Southampton job, which I know has now gone, you know, he would probably think to himself at this point in time, Oh, that's a bit low down the scale for me.
Well, you say that, but Glenn Hoddle, in fact, took that route. In fact, he went to Southampton.
No, he did, yeah.
Now, he came from being England manager 1 minute to having to go back to it. He went to Wolves, he went to Southampton, he went to Spurs.
But it hasn't really helped him, has it? Because he still hasn't ever got back to that level.
No, it hasn't.
That's what I mean.
It hasn't helped him. But
and I think David Moyes has had his shot at the big time. I don't think he'll get another one.
If we were going to be absolutely cruel now, and it's horrible to talk about, people losing their jobs and all that.
It's not horrible. I think we should get away from that. The guy got 15 million quid or something, didn't he?
No, I'm not talking about David losing his job. I'm talking about somebody who's in a job at the moment.
All right, okay.
Which Premier League manager is most vulnerable at the start of next season? Who knows what's going to happen at QPR?
I would say it might be Jose Mourinho.
Well, yeah, but they wouldn't appoint David Moyes.
No, I don't mean that.
No, exactly what I'm saying. At a level that David Moyes could be appointed. Because what I'm saying is that, look, Harry is a great manager and he's got QPR back up. But Harry's demands on what he wants now to take the club forward may result in him having a frank conversation with the people who run QPR. Who knows? I don't know. And Harry, I think, has got another job in him anyway. He could move on to another Premier League club. He's succeeded at the highest level in the Premier League.
But this is why I think Moyes, if he's offered the job by Galatasaray, should actually take it. Because he's got access to the Champions League straight away, and if he was able to pull off something amazing like getting Galatasaray into the semi-finals or something, then he could get back into the big time.
Newcastle might be available within a few weeks to the start of the Premier League
I don't think that's
season.
going to be something that would catapult him back up to the top.
I think it would be a great opportunity for him. A very big club, Newcastle.
No, they are. They are. But, in his head, he's a top 4 manager.
Yeah.
Now.
Well, I mean, who knows what's going to happen at West Ham next season, for instance, and... they need to be, they need to stay on a very, very stable path for the next couple of years as they move to their new stadium and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
It's got very serious, all this conversation.
Well, it has got too serious. Come on,
I think we're going to have to come up with
a bit of lightness and brightness.
Something light and bright coming up next, right here on TalkSport.
World-class World Cup football. Every game, every goal, live from Brazil.
Team TalkSport are the boys from Brazil.
Hey, boss, I got a leak in my sink. Don't worry, lads, we're all doing it. Just make sure you keep the tap running.
The 2014 FIFA World Cup Brazil on TalkSport.
This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. There is already a podcast out from the show we did yesterday. There will be another podcast out later on today, of course, from this show. I've got somebody who's obviously very deluded who sent in a text here from somewhere. Actually, a text that doesn't have a name on it. It says, I'm sure you didn't send this in. It says, Mike Parry's a genius, and if everybody listened to his wisdom, the world would be a better place.
Thank you.
Respect, Mr. Parry.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. And I didn't send that out, but I'm glad that, I'm getting some recognition for the fact that, a lot of people think I have some bizarre theories on the way the world works.
Which you do.
But I tell you something, some of my theories are deeply researched over decades, not just years, and I do appreciate when, an individual eventually picks up on the idea that if we all followed a sort of philosophy of the ones that I expound, the world might be a better place. Okay?
It might be, or it might not be. Let's have a word with Lee in Australia, who's an Everton fan. We've spoken to Lee before, actually. Morning, Lee, how are you?
Yeah, tremendous, guys. Great show. And bonus having you on a Saturday morning here. So, yes.
Well, it's very kind of you, mate. And remember, for the weekend, you've got a couple of podcasts now you can catch up on. So I want you to go to the Lord Nelson just outside Sydney and have a laugh and a chuckle to the podcast while you're sinking a few pints.
Yeah, well, I download it every week. So, yes, all good. But just, I've got a question regarding Coronation Street, which you brought up earlier.
Yes.
And obviously, Tina's gone, which is very sad. Eva is definitely out of Mike's league. Paddy, that is.
Definitely.
So I just want to know,
No, I don't think she's out of my league.
Well, getting married on the cobbles would be a great idea. But I want to know at what level Mike Paddy thinks he's at. If he was going to get married on the cobbles of Coronation Street in front of the Rovers Return, is he at A, Emily Bishop, B, Audrey Roberts, or C, Gail Platt? You've got to pick one.
The only one I really know very well. The only one I know is Gail Platt. I'd say that's about his level C.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to respond. I'm not going to respond to that, Lee. And I'm not going to respond to it for a number of reasons.
Why not?
Well, firstly, I think it would be such a terrible insult to the two ladies I rejected that it might literally permanently psychologically damage them to know that they've been rejected. No, I'm serious. It's a terrible thing to be publicly rejected like that. And thirdly...
Well, no, you're not rejecting anyone. You're accepting one out of the three. So it's not a negative. It's a positive that all three are at the same level, but what level are you at with those three? So it's a positive. So
well, I mean, in many ways, Lee, you
feel really.
In many ways, Lee, you
could
say, you could say, Lee, that he's at the same level with all three of them. You know, no chance, basically.
Well, oh, I see, Lee. So you just rang up really to say whatever I gave you the answer, you would immediately mock it and deride it and say, you ain't got open hell, you haven't, Porky. No. I want to.
It's a very straightforward question. I don't know why I don't want to answer it.
Well, I'm going to tell you another reason why I won't answer it, and that is because if I plumped for one of those three women, and they're all, you know, lovely individuals, no problem at all. The problem is that they, I'm sure, are very happily domiciled in their private lives, and for me to get involved and start talking nonsense about, you know, their...
I'm not talking about the private lives, I'm talking about the Coronation Street persona.
Yeah, okay, so that's that way you don't have to insult them then, do you?
No, but even within the Coronation Street persona, you know, there are things going on there. There are things going on there we don't know
about. Well, this is a show where people get murdered.
Well, it is a show where people get murdered, that is wrong. By the way, Lee, do you get Coronation Street down in Australia?
Yeah, we're bang up to date, so this week, you know, I get home and save it every day, and me and the missus get home from work, and that's the first thing we put on. We might be thousands of miles away, but it's on at 6:30.
Porky hasn't quite grasped the modern world, you know. He doesn't realise you can actually watch television in Australia.
No, don't.
We're pretty much up to date with it now.
Have you got electricity and everything down there, Lee?
I'm like.
Have you got electricity and everything else down there as well?
We have, and apparently they're going to put something called the internet in.
Have you?
know.
Wow, amazing.
No, Lee, just to get back to reality, do you not agree with me that the standard of the plots and the acting lately has been absolutely outstanding in Coronation Street? The murder plot and Tina Dye and all that kind of stuff. And for those few of our listeners who don't follow Corro and don't know the plot, I suggest you do.
I don't.
That and Emmerdale is best viewing on television.
I haven't got time.
Absolutely agree.
Well, I totally agree.
Hey, by the way, Lee, while you're on, what do you make of David Moyes going to Galatasaray? If he does.
I think it's the president's already come out and said he's not first choice, so and he's going to wait till after the World Cup. So the writing's on the wall before it's already started. And I think it's a backward step. I think he's got to bite the bullet and say, you know what, I'm going to go back to a club in the Premier League and show everyone what I've done over the last 11 years at Everton. And I was listening earlier, and you said Newcastle United, and I think that's the perfect platform for which he could perform, because the money won't be there, even though money is there, and he could work within a budget, and he's proven that in the past. And I think that would be, the perfect opportunity, the perfect fit, unless Pardew's listening, but the perfect fit for the club and also for David Moyes to resurrect his career. Going to Europe and hiding is not an answer.
No, I agree. And you're absolutely right to have brought up the original point. The president of Galatasaray now seems to say that we will take David Moyes, providing we don't get a yes from either Joachim Low or Jurgen Klinsmann. Respectively the managers
he's not going to get either of them, is he?
And USA, I don't know. I don't know whether they want to do
Well, listen, Lee, thank you very much indeed for calling. I'm sorry that Mike Parry wasn't able to answer your question for some reason or other.
I'm not going to be drawn into that sort of thing.
Well, I don't know why not. Yeah, I'll tell you what you should be drawn into. I don't know if you saw this, but it's on the front pages of some of the papers again today.
Oh, yeah.
There's this crazy row that's going on at Wimbledon about the women and what colour underwear they can wear. And
it's not about
yes,
the colour.
Yes, it is about
No,
that.
it's not. You're trying to titillate it.
No, I'm not trying to titillate it.
You are trying to titillate it. The row is all about...
Here's a headline that says, stars get their knickers in a twist. Ladies up in arms over strict rules on all white sportswear.
I can't believe that after your career in newspapers, you expect me to seriously react to a headline which has just titillated the story.
No,
the story is not about women's underwear. The story is about the fact that the people who run Wimbledon have asked for all white outfits.
Well, it's ridiculous.
And all white
totally
outfits.
Ridiculous.
I mean, all white outfits include white shirts, white blouses, white skirts, white shoes, and of course, if the design of the outfit that the woman's got on
no, but it specifically says...
means that other parts of her attire are going to be available to the public.
Well,
I'm not, but what I'm saying is it's really I think it's low of you, Mike, to try
it's
and
not.
make out
It's not low.
that this is a petty issue about
This
the
is a-
colour of
this
women's
is a-
knickers.
all right,
It's
well,
not.
all right, well, let me make it
You're
a bit
trying to
more clear to
titillate
you.
it, and you're trying to make light of it, and in fact, you're trying to be a bit smutty about it.
No, I'm not.
And I object to that.
No, I'm not. If you
I
look at the
object to
front
that.
page of, would you call the Daily Telegraph a smutty newspaper?
Wimbledon is one of the greatest institutions in this country. All they're trying to do is keep
Hang on a
the
minute.
standards
Hang
at
on
the
a minute.
very highest.
Last week,
highest.
right, on Monday, you said to me Wimbledon is the most boring sporting event in the world.
No, I didn't say
and you
that.
said that you didn't watch it at all
I didn't
until
say
it
that.
got to about the final stages of the men's singles.
I said that you can look again at the structure of Wimbledon in the first week, because the first week, not an awful lot happens unless, you know, a really big star gets knocked out or something like that. It's the second week when it starts. That's all I'm saying. But I have never lost my admiration for Wimbledon.
You are such a hypocrite.
No. And by the way, I saw an interview today. There was some reporter on one of the breakfast television shows, and they came down the corridor from the players' locker rooms, as we call them in America, the changing rooms,
Oh.
right? Brought them into the sort of, you know, the main hallway, and then down the stairs and through the doors out on. What a magnificent order, you know,
I used to go to Wimbledon.
it is.
I used to go to
Magnificent in the
Wimbledon
sanctum.
every single year
Yeah.
as a teenager, right? When
Yeah.
when it was accessible to the ordinary people. Now it's only accessible to people like you who can afford to send their friends and their family
Yes.
there at a cost of thousands of pounds. And I'm afraid.
Could you stand in those days?
In those days, you used to be able to go out. You could get into the ground for nothing after 5 o'clock.
Right.
And my sister and I used to, because we
Yeah.
went to school in West London,
Right.
and we would go down there every afternoon,
Yeah.
basically at 5
Yeah.
o'clock, and you could stand outside of centre court and wait for people coming out.
Yeah.
Who would just hand you their tickets, so you could go in and watch games.
Really?
Until
Wow.
because there were no tie breaks in those days. You watched people like Pancho Gonzalez and Newcomb and
Playing
Roach,
forever.
Ken Rosewall playing until it got dark.
Yeah,
It was
right.
absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm going to answer you because I'm offended that you're suggesting that I'm being smutty
You are
about
being
this.
smutty.
Because the Daily Telegraph, which is not generally considered to be a smutty newspaper, it's not
Okay.
a tabloid.
Okay.
On the front page, they have got a picture of a female tennis player. Okay, Caroline Wozniacki, who you
Yes.
might remember used to be engaged to Rory McIlroy.
And was number one in the world.
The headline
but
on
never
the front,
won a
on the
major
front page
slam.
says, bottom line for women's stars of Wimbledon, and it says Wimbledon officials were given a delicate warning after they effectively banned coloured undergarments by enforcing an all-white rule on players' clothing.
Yeah.
And Caroline Wozniacki said checks to see if female players were wearing white knickers
Yeah.
would be creepy.
Yeah.
So it's coming from the female tennis players, not from me.
No.
I'm not suggesting that we should have a conversation about the colour of women's
Yes,
underwear.
you are.
All I'm saying to you is that Wimbledon needs to get out of the dark ages, literally, pardon the pun, and they need to be able to let women who play for, tennis professionally at Wimbledon to wear whatever underwear they want to wear.
I don't understand why any woman who's wearing a white outfit with a short skirt, who's a tennis player, would wear any other underwear other than the colour white anyway.
Well, because it's
That's
it's the
what I
only
don't
tournament
understand.
in the world where they all have to wear white. They're allowed to have a little bit of blue trim or orange trim or something
Very
like that.
narrow,
And
1
then,
millimetre,
yeah,
I
it's
think.
One, yeah, 1
Yeah.
centimetre, I think. We
No,
give you a
no,
millimetre.
no, I think it's a millimetre.
No, it's centimetre.
It's not a centimetre. A centimetre is nearly an inch. You can't have
a
that much.
centimetre is nowhere near an inch. It's 10
A
millimetres.
centimetre is nearly an inch,
It's
Mike.
actually 10 millimetres.
Okay, so how come if there's 36 inches in a yard,
Yeah.
there are also 30 centimetres in that yard? It must be nearly an inch.
No, I don't think you're right about that.
I am definitely right.
I'm sure you're
I'm
not
definitely
about
right.
that.
You
No.
you
How many
muttonhead.
centimetres are there in an inch then?
Well, that's it's nearly an
How
inch.
many?
A centimetre is nearly an inch. And it's-
So you're saying that a
well,
centimetre
100
and an inch is more
metres,
or less the same?
100 metres and 100 yards are virtually the same. Would you agree?
Yes.
There, well, there you go.
Well,
so a
that's not the
centimetre
same.
must be nearly the same as an inch.
Really?
I'm telling you.
0.3937007787 inches. That means there's 3 centimetres to an inch.
Rubbish.
What do you mean rubbish?
That's utter rubbish.
So
That's
therefore,
nonsense.
there are 3. So a centimetre is about a third of an inch. Nothing like an inch.
Centimetre. No, that can't be right. That can't be right.
Well, it is right.
That can't be right.
I've just done it. I've just done the conversion.
Well, I think you've got your mutton
Knickers
fingers
in a
wrong.
twist is
No,
what you
no,
want to say there.
no. You see, they are again. Trying to.
Well,
you know,
why
trying
can't
to
you
turn
say
this-
the word? We can't say the word knickers.
Because it is not about that. It is about the standards at Wimbledon. And I wish you would accept that. I'm sure our listeners accept that all that Wimbledon are saying is we're not going to go down the route of France, Australia or America.
I think they're going
where
too far.
people come out looking like the court jester. They come out looking like somebody who's sprayed glue all over
All right, well,
himself
let me
and,
give you
and
this.
walked,
Right.
walked
Let
through
me give you
Woolworths.
this. Let me give you this then.
Such a multiplicity of colours.
Right. Well, let me tell you what it's really about, okay? It's not about somebody being creepy and trying to find out what colour underwear underwear the women are wearing. They're worried that the sponsors are going to take over the clothing and they're going to have big, representations.
I'm glad they worry about that.
All right, but if they were actually not hypocrites, which I believe they are, they would then rid all of the sponsors' tags from every single Wimbledon piece of paraphernalia, right? But when you're watching Wimbledon, you just see sponsors' names everywhere.
Of course you do. Robinson's Water, is it?
Robinson's Water. You see the timepieces. Rolex. You see the champagne. There's plenty of big names. And the only reason they don't like it is because they're not getting any money out of it, and that's what I think is wrong.
No, I don't agree. I think it's about the maximum imposition of the standards of Wimbledon. That is, we play in all white here, and the longer that stays in place, the better. It's Wimbledon. It's the greatest tennis tournament in the world. It's the most established. I did not say that. I said that the course of play in the first week could be improved in the sense that I think it rambles on for too long until it goes into the second week. I mean, Andy Murray is now into the second week, and listening to Barry Flatman, an old friend of mine and yours, when he was talking earlier tonight, he said, well, he's through to the second week. And it's almost like the first week is almost warm-up week, you know what I mean? And I think they could do something to improve that. But as for the actual standards of behaviour, of dress...
Sorry, I'm just reading a text here from someone who says, I think female tennis players should be banned from wearing any knickers whatsoever.
Well, that's disgusting. I don't think you should have read that out. That, to me, is smutty. It's smutty.
Well, it's really 4 o'clock in the morning. You'll be all right.
It's denigrating to women. I find that, frankly, offensive.
Do you?
Yes, I do.
OK. Well, let's finish on a more productive note.
You see, it's funny?
Well, I don't think it's funny at all. I find it amazing during this whole conversation, you can't bring yourself to say anything other than undergo. It's like some kind of old Victorian father.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, right, the World Cup's back on tonight. 2 live games right here on TalkSport. Brazil-Chile, Uruguay against Colombia.
Yeah.
I wish to have your predictions, please.
Well, I can't believe that on their own soil, Brazil are going to falter against Chile.
I think they're going to go out.
And yet a lot of people think they are. Really? How good were Chile in their qualifying group? Did they get 9 points?
Well, they were in quite a hard group, I think, weren't they? And I think they got 2 wins.
Yeah, they did. They did actually. I've just been looking that up. Yeah, I see. I can't believe that Brazil can falter on that. I've got to say Brazil.
Okay.
I've got to say Brazil.
And what about Uruguay going out without Suarez then?
Against
Colombia. Colombia have been very good.
Yeah.
Even though they haven't got Falcao.
I'd have to go for Colombia on that one.
So you're going Brazil, Colombia.
Brazil and Colombia.
I'm going to go Chile, Colombia. We'll regroup on Monday and find out day after tomorrow, and we'll find out how we did.
We certainly will.